What is up, my ding-daddly dadas, and welcome back to part 6. Can you believe it, my dudes? This patch is beefy. Welcome back to part 6 of my Last Epoch Season 3 Beneath Ancient Skies patch notes reading. So, we are still working on the Primalist. We stopped last part at the Summon Sabertooth changes. So let's just get straight back into it, my dudes. Summon Sabertooth now also has dexterity scaling, granting plus 10 health and 4% increased damage per point. So that's some changes that actually been done on also on the Raptor specifically, scaling with dexterity, which is interesting. Sabertooth basic attack now has 15 base damage and 75% damage effectiveness. From 18 and 100%, okay, so that's a nerf to the basic attack. Now has 36% more attack speed, okay. Prowling Juggernaut grants 15% more health per point from 10%, okay, that's a buff. Max 4 points from 5, yeah, okay, so basically not necessarily, like, the per point is increased, but the max amount of points that you can actually put into this skill to multiply it, I guess, or to increase it, makes it almost the same. So 15 times 4, I mean, that's 60, right? But you would get 50. So, I mean, max you will get 10% more, but it's not like the greatest difference, right? It's 10% more, right? Frozen Fur grants minus 25% cold resistance per point from 20%, okay? So that's a buff. And now also grants 8% more health per point, okay? So that's a buff to the cold resistance and more health per point. Snow Stalker has been removed, okay? Constitution has been replaced with Ferocity. 4% increased attack speed per point and 10% more flurry swipes damage per point. Max 5 points. Okay. Cornered Beast has been moved and now connects to Ferocity. Pounce has been replaced with Destructive Power. Your Sabertooth's attacks have a 5% chance per point to trigger Upheaval. Upheaval cast in this way uses your Sabertooth's stats, but your Upheaval tree. Okay. This chance is halved if Upheaval creates multiple fault lines. Max 4 points. Added a new node in Cornered Beast's old position, Earth-Shaking Entrance. When your Sabertooth leaps, it uses Upheaval when it lands. Okay. Savage Catalyst grants 6% chance per point from 5% to use Flurry Swipes when it directly uses a melee attack and hits at least one enemy. Max 4 points from 5. Saber Maw grants 8% more melee damage per point from 6% and 15% increased melee area per point from 10%. Max 4 points from 5, okay? Heavy Paws grants 8% more melee damage. What? From 40? Okay, so does this mean that... Does this mean that it's actually adding? Because it gives more, right? Does that mean that the Heavy Paw grants 48% now? Or does it mean like it's super nerfed? I don't quite understand, actually. Keen Senses grants plus 3% critical strike chance per point from 30% increased critical strike chance. Okay, so... Is this... So this is a bit confusing. Is this added to the already 30% increased crit? Or is it a mega nerf of like 25%? Sorry, 27%. I think it's added, so I think it's like 33%, right? I'm not sure, like, this is really confusing, actually. Opportunistic Hunter grants plus 25% critical strike multiplier per point from plus 25. Okay. That's the same. Yes, this is confusing. Like, I don't understand this. So what does it mean, like, from 25? I mean, it already says, like, it grants 25 plus 25 critical strike multiplier. But from plus 25, does that mean that it's 50 now? Like, who knows, you know? It's kind of weird. It's not very logical. Gauging clause now allows now also grants plus 34% armor shred chance per point, max points 3 from 1. So in this case, it means, you know, it was 1, now it is 3, right? But that probably also means from 30% increased crit strike chance to 3% crit strike chance, right? If that's the case, this is a mega nerf. Agile and Deadly grants 8% increased attack speed per point from 6. This is understandable, right? This is understandable. So it was 6, now it's 8, right? And also 6% increased movement speed per point from 4. That's also an increase of 2%. Max points 4 from 5. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that one I understand. Like, some of these points I don't quite understand. The Frenzy node has been reworked and now grants your Sabertooth Frenzy for 2 seconds after using Flurry Swipes. Okay. Frost Fang grants plus 5 cold damage per point from 4. Ancestral Hunter now has this effect can trigger up to 10 times per 5 seconds from no limit. Okay. So it had no limit. Now it can trigger up to 10 times per 5 seconds. Yeah. Added a new node connected to Ancestral Hunter, Ancestral Favor. Your Ancestral Sabertooths have 4% increased duration per point of your attunement, max 1 point, okay. Ice Tiger now also converts bleed chance from all sources to frostbite chance for your Sabertooth, okay. Icebringer has been reworked. Your Sabertooth has plus 34% frostbite chance per point and plus 10% chill chance per point, max 3 points, okay. Rhymeheart has been reworked. Your Sabertooth deals 8% more melee damage per point per stack of chill on the target. Max 3 points. Northwind has been reworked. Your Sabertooth gains plus 1 cold melee damage per 2 points of your dexterity. Max 1 point. Okay. Summon Scorpion now also has dexterity scaling, granting plus 10 health and 4% increased damage per point. Steel Carapace no longer grants 8% increased size per point. It now grants 8% more health per point. Max 4 points from 5. Okay. Venomous Maw grants plus 25% poison chance per point from 15. Right? This makes sense, right? This is from 15 increased by 10. Now it's 25, right? And Venom Prey required ailment can now be converted by cold conversion or lightning conversion. If lightning converted, it grants 3% more hit damage per stack of shock instead of the typical 1% per stack. Pinches and pokes no longer grants 10% increased size per point. It now grants 4% increased attack speed per point. Maternal Instincts now summons baby scorpions every 5 seconds from every 10 seconds. Fertility Rites has been replaced with Small Target, which grants baby scorpions 50% more dodge rating per point. Max 2 points, okay? Chromatic Carapace grants plus 15% elemental resistance per point from 10. And it now also grants 15% increased area of effect for the scorpion's abilities per point. Max 4 points, okay. Added a new node connected to the Chromatic Carapace and Steel Carapace. Reverberating Strike. Your Scorpion's tail strikes causes a large avalanche boulder to fall on the target. Avalanche boulders cast this way use your Scorpion's stats, but your avalanche tree. Okay? Interesting. Ice Sting grants 10% more cold damage per point from 6% and 75% freeze rate multiplier per point from 60. 75% freeze rate multiplier? Max 4 points. Oh my god, that's quite huge, isn't it? Ice Sting? Okay, well, yeah, that's quite big. I think that seems quite big. Get Over Here has been replaced with Frozen Winds. Your Scorpion has a 25% chance per point to cast Maelstrom whenever you do. Yeah, this is this is a cool one. Maelstroms cast by your Scorpion in this way uses your Scorpion's stats, but your Maelstrom 3. Max 4 points. Yeah, this is really interesting. Like, so now we're back to kind of like now we're back to the where my train of thoughts is like just running along here because or just racing away because I'm thinking about all these different skills that I want to test. So like with the changes now and with like the insights to the different skills, like really makes me think like, oh my god, I want to try to play just like a single ability build type of, like build everything around a single skill. Rest for the Wicked no longer connects to the noxious Carpes, and now it also grants plus 3% critical strike chance per point. Thunder Stinger now also converts poison chance from all sources to shock chance for your Scorpion. The Shock Nova ability now has 80 base damage and 400% effectiveness from 60 and 300%. Okay, so that's a buff. Shock and Claw grants plus 15% shock chance per point from 12%. Added a new node connected to Thunder Stinger, Storm Conduit. Your Storm Bolts will target your Scorpion, granting it a stack of charged up to a maximum of 20 stacks. Your Scorpion's Shock Nova consumes all stacks of charge to deal 20% more damage per stack. Max 1 point. Okay. Deeper Puddle now leaves behind the Poison Pool for 4 seconds, from 1 second per point. Maximum point is 1 from 4. Yeah, okay, so that's basically just like, yeah, that's 1. It's going to cost you 1 point, right? Instead of 4. Moving on to the Summon Spriggan. Added a new node connected to Aura of Loyalty. It's the Aura of Hordes. Your Spriggan's Healing Aura grants additional effects based on your number of active companions. For each Wolf, it grants 3% increased attack speed per point. For each Stormcrow, it grants 12% increased mana regeneration per point. For each Raptor, it grants plus 6% critical strike multiplier per point. Max 2 points. Okay. Added a node connected to Aura of Loyalty. It's Aura of Voracity. Your Spriggan's Healing Aura grants additional effects based on your active companions. With a Bear, it grants 3% of maximum health gained as endurance threshold per point. With a Sabertooth, it grants 15% increased dodge rating per point. With a Scorpion, it grants 15% increased area of effect per point, max 3 points. And also, fix the bug where Aura of Loyalty was not affecting the healing granted to minions. Well, good fix. Good fix, my dudes. Good fix. Summon Stormcrows. Crow Storm gains 30% more damage per active crow. From 50. Okay, so that's a buff. Sorry, that's a nerf. Thunderous Blast grants 10% more damage per active crow from 15. Okay, so that's nerfs to crows. Summon Wolf. Pack Hunters has been replaced with Permanent Bond. You have an additional wolf companion at all times. This wolf does not count towards your companion limit. Okay. Swipe. Primal Resonance. When this effect triggers a companion ability, that ability will now target the enemy that was hit instead of your cursor position. This is intended to make it more intuitive and useful for abilities like Crow Storm. Okay. Interesting. So now we are moving into the item, affix, and enemy balance, my dudes. The endurance... Okay, so starting off with the affixes. The endurance, while channeling Warpath affix, now grants 33% to 36% endurance at tier 6, 37 and 40% at tier 7. From a fixed 30 in both cases. Okay, so that's a buff. Added a new prefix for daggers, one-handed axes, and two-handed axes. I'm gonna need a drink, sorry. which grants additional melee and necrotic spell damage. Added a new level of Flay prefix for body armor, which grants additional skill levels to Flay and increases an increased area for area skill. Okay. The off-Bulwark Sentinel Idol affix grants plus 176 to 380 block effectiveness on adorned idols, from 176 to 475. So that's a little nerf to like the top end. Plus 124 to 268 block effectiveness on large idols. That's also a little buff on the high end, nerf on the high end. Sorry, no, it's not. It's a buff. And plus 185 to 400 block effectiveness on huge idols, from 185 to 500. So that's a little nerf on the top end. The dreaded Widow's Fanged, Biting, Scorching, Illuminating, and Fate Weaver's Weaver idol affixes grants 1 to 2% penetration, from 1 to 3. On 1x1 idols, and 3 to 4% penetration, from 4 to 6. On 2x1 or 1x2 idols. Okay. The Preserving Weaver idol affix grants 5 to 7% ward retention, from 6 to 9, so that's a little nerf right there, and 5 to 8 ward per second, from 7 to 10, another little nerf right there. The Off-Respite Weaver idol affix grants plus 14 to 18 health, from 15 to 20, and plus 1 to 2 health regen, from 1 to 3, so that's also a little nerf. The Restful Weaver idol affix grants plus 14 to 18 health, from 15 to 20, so that's also a nerf, and 5 to 8% increased health regeneration, from 13 to 15, that's also a nerf. The Serene Weaver idol affix grants plus 14 to 18 health, from 15 to 20, and 5 to 10% increased healing effectiveness, from 18 to 25, so that's quite a nerf on the healing effectiveness there. The Off-Repose Weaver idol affix grants plus 14 to 18 health, from 15 to 20, and plus 5 to 8 mana, from 7 to 10, another nerf. The Of the Loom Weaver idol affix grants 12 to 16 ward per second, from 15 to 20, and 8 to 14% ward retention, from 8 to 16. The Swaddling Weaver idol affix grants 4 to 5 vitality, that's unchanged, and 2 to 4 health regen, from 3 to 5. Spined idol affix grants 8 to 20% chance on hit to summon a Thorn Totem up to 3 times per 5 seconds, that's from 4 to 10% and from no limit. The Resounding idol affix grants 10 to 25% chance for an avalanche boulder to drop at a nearby enemy on melee attack, up to 3 times per second, from 5 to 14% and no limit. The Reverberating idol affix grants 8 to 22% chance for an avalanche boulder to drop at a nearby enemy on spellcast, up to 3 times per second, from 4 to 11% and no limit. Okay. Moving on to the enemy balance changes. Normalized how enemy damage is scaled with level for enemies that scale to level. For example, enemies in the Monolith and enemies in random encounters such as exiled mages. This should result in a more consistent ratio of damage between different enemies regardless of level, and should fix some cases where enemies deal excessive damage at one level but are balanced at others. Aberrot's Frailty now also grants 50% reduced healing effectiveness per stack. Okay. Unique and set item changes. So there are new unique items. We are releasing a total of 30 new uniques for Season 3, including 5 standard uniques and 25 primordial uniques. Oh yes. Unique item changes. So Clothos Needle grants 3 to 6 strength and dexterity, from 4 to 11. Plus 15% to 22% melee critical strike multiplier per meter from the target up to 5 meters, from 15 to 25. A little nerf there on the top end. And plus 60 to 80 melee damage, from 90. Okay, nerfed. The giant rapier subtype used exclusively by Clothos Needle has plus 80 melee damage from 90. Okay, so that's actually a little nerf to the Clothos Needle. Confluence of Fate grants 3 to 9% increased fire damage taken on hit, increased necrotic damage taken on hit, and increased void damage taken on hit from 5 to 13%. Okay. Nerfed. Wrong Warp grants 2% increased spell damage per 1% increased movement speed from 3 per 1. It now has effective level for legendary potential of 80. Of 70 from 48. Viper Tail grants 50 to 80% chance to poison on hit from 50 to 70. Okay, so that's a little buff there on the high end. And 10 to 30% chance to slow on hit from 50 to 70, because that's a big nerf on the chance to slow. Eucenius Sphere grants 20% increased cold and lightning damage for each water orb you have cast in the past 12 seconds, from 30%. It now has an effective level for legendary potential of 30 from 20. The water orbs now have 80 base damage and 400% effectiveness of added damage from 60 and 300%. Okay, so that's... water orb is actually buffed a little bit. Talents of Valor now has an effective level for legendary potential of 50 from 30. Blood of Exile grants plus 5 to 8 strength, dexterity, and intelligence from 8 to 12. Okay, so that's nerfed. Flames of Midnight grants plus 7 to 11% fire, necrotic, and void penetration from 11 to 17. Also a nerf. Ambitions of an Erased Acolyte now has a maximum of 3000 ward granted by its effect when a nearby enemy or ally dies. Okay. Countenance of Majasa grants 25 to 30% block effectiveness applied to damage over time, as if it had been blocked from, from 30 to 35%, so that's nerfed. And plus 150 to 300 block effectiveness from 300 to 600, also nerfed. It now has an effective level for legendary potential of 50 from 40. Pearls of the Swine grants plus 5 to 9 vitality from 7 to 13, plus 7 to 11% all resistances from 7 to 13, and 113 to 166 ward per second for each curse affected you from 113 to 133. Okay, so a little buff there to the ward per second. Brewmaster's Buckle grants plus 6 to 10 vitality from 8 to 14. Orion's Descent grants plus 4 to 12 intelligence from 4 to 25. It now has an effective level for legendary potential of 66 from 40. Scissor of Atropos grants plus 46 melee damage from 50. 12% to 16% increased attack speed from 14 to 22%. That's also a nerf. And Kismet stacks are now only consumed when you directly use a throwing attack, from also applied to indirect uses. Okay. Transcriber's Graver grants 12 to 20% elemental penetration from 16 to 24%. Nerfed. 80% to 80 to 120% chance to cast Fire Aura each second while standing on your Glyph of Dominion from 40 to 80%. Okay, so that's buffed. And plus 6 to 10 spell damage with Flame Rush per stack of Fire Aura from 4 to 8. Okay, so that's another nerf. Vessel of Strife grants a 20 to 30% of health regen, also applies to ward from 20 to 40. The Black Blade of Chaos grants 6 to 60% chance to inflict time rot on hit from 12 to 120%. Bro, that's a big nerf. Right? World Splitter grants plus 0.2 to 0.3% crit strike chance for melee attacks per 1 mana cost from 0.3 to 0.5 per 1. The slab now limits block chance to a maximum of 75%. Ashes of Mortality chance on hit to gain ward per ignite and damned on you, and the target is now limited up to 2000 ward from no limit. Okay. Bloodkeeper's Nest grants bees plus 12 to 16 health per attunement from 7 to 12, and plus 6 to 8% physical penetration with bleed per strength from 4 to 6. So that's a buff to the Bloodkeeper's Nest. Moving on to the set item changes. Renamed Lightning Infusion from Boardman's Plank to Storm Infusion. Nothing more, nothing less. Item faction updates. So not a lot of updates to the Circle of Fortune, but as we can see here, Merchant's Guild is actually getting some changes. Let's kick it off with the Circle of Fortune. Increase the amount of favor you gain for joining the Circle of Fortune faction to 500. It should now be enough to immediately buy your first prophecy. Well, that's a good change. Moving on to the Merchant's Guild. Black market tokens and merchant tokens have been added as a droppable item. Yeah. Yep. Merchant tokens can be used to remove favor cost from an item that you are purchasing from the bazaar. Black market tokens can be used to buy items that require a higher reputation rank than you have and reduce the rank requirement to 1. Only 1 token can be used per purchase. They can be dropped only if the player is currently a member of the Merchant's Guild faction, and they are a fairly rare drop. So I wonder what that means. A fairly rare drop? It's like, are you gonna get 1 per hour? Are you gonna get 1 per 10 hours? Like, yeah, I wonder what the drop rate's gonna be like in praxis, you know. Practice? In practice? In praxis? Yeah, I was stumbling with those words. Yeah, never mind. 1 merchant token will drop for each new reputation rank. 1 black market token for reaching reputation rank 6. Your current stock of these tokens can be seen in either the Merchant's Guild faction or the Bazaar UIs. Yeah, so that's cool. These are cool, these tokens. The Bazaar UI has been overhauled in order to make filtering and finding the items you're looking for more efficient. That's good change. Bazaar search filters can now be set by attempting to quick move, shift and right click an item in your inventory while the Bazaar listing UI is open. This will set the minimum values for relevant stats on an item automatically for easier price checking. Nice. Added the ability to filter modifier ranges for uniques in the Bazaar when buying items. Yeah, that's also probably a good change, my dudes. So, endgame faction updates. Let's start with the Woven. Adjusted chances for Weaver's Touch when enchanting idols. Adjusted chance for Weaver idols to have 2 Weaver affixes. Added new rank bonuses and idol crafting. Rank 3, you can reforge classic specific idols at the Woven and Enchanter. Okay. Reforging a class specific idol will move any Weaver's Touch and enchanted affixes, then reroll the standard affixes as it had dropped anew. Okay, well, that's interesting. At rank 4, enchanting class-specific idols is more likely to result in higher Weaver's Touch. Rank 5, you can reforge Weaver idols at the Woven Enchanter. Reforging a Weaver idol will reroll its affixes. At least 1 affix will always be a Weaver affix. Okay. Rank 7, reforging Weaver idols is 10% more likely to result in 2 Weaver affixes. Rank 9, 10% more Memory Amber drops in your echoes. And also added 4 new nodes to the Weaver tree. Age of Beasts, increased Rift Beast spawn rate. Riven Gateway, Rift Beasts from Rifts are accompanied by other Ancient Era enemies. And Crystal Growth, increased chance for Rift Beasts to have crystallized hearts. Primordial Ambush adds a chance to be ambushed by randomly evolved Rift Beasts. Okay, so there are 2 like Rift specific Weaver nodes. Moving on to quality of life and other changes. So loot filter custom loot filter beams and map icons. In loot filter specified rules on the bottom left of the new rule filter screen, there is now an option to set a specific beam and a corresponding minimap icon. Map icons will match the dominant color of selected beams. Players may also set a none option to display no beam, no map icon, but leave the item ground label intact. Beams and map icons operate dynamically and retroactively for all items dropped. Caution is advised when setting too broad a filter with custom beams and icons, as this can have an adverse effect on performance. Bro, these patch notes are so long. I need to wet my beak here. There are now options to select different sounds for loot drops in the loot filter menu. Added support for matching unique modifier roles in loot filters. When selecting at least one unique in a loot filter that has modifiers with role ranges, a secondary input will appear that allows specifying min and max values for modifiers of the selected uniques. That's cool. So you can actually shave off even more time that you are spending, picking up a unique. Like let's say you are rocking a specific unique weapon, and if that unique weapon drops, you are not going to be picking up the unique items that are actually worse than what you are already wearing if you don't want to. But you can really specify that only show me if a better unique of whatever I'm wearing is dropping, Note for third-party tool creators, this is part of Loot Filter version 5 and replaces uniques condition with unique modifiers condition. Any filters on version 4 with uniques condition will automatically migrate to use unique modifiers condition when loaded in-game. Any rule that includes a recoloring of item labels will now display the color change in the rule listing by coloring the word show at the start of the text of that rule. Using loot filter conditions with minimum Weaver's Will or Legendary Potential will now only affect unique items with Weaver's Will or Legendary Potential respectively, instead of all unique items. Miscellaneous polish for loot filter rule editor UI. The Forge UI has been adjusted to make crafting costs and results more clear. Forging potential and how much forging potential the item is going to lose are now shown. Glyphs can be consumed. Glyphs that can be consumed are now shown in the UI. Okay. Interesting. Cool. The outcome of a craft will now show the following information: the added affix tier and current value of it on the item, critical successes, and what it has upgraded. Results from runes with an explanation of what it did. Nice. Okay, and then we have some stash macros here. Added swap attributes macro. Updated relic of the observer Odin's Watch to set the macro when opening the stash. Added PT, potential tier macro. Matches items that could be used for unique rerolling in the Gauntlet of Strife. Example, WW and PT 20 plus would match Weaver's Will items that have 20 or more Weaver's Will and Legendary Affix tiers. Updated Woven Offering to set the potential tier macro when opening the stash. Added affix tier count macros. These work the same way as existing affix tier macros, but instead of matching any affix, they match if at least a certain number of affixes are matching tiers. Available affix tiers counts are 1 to 5, so 1T, 2T, 3T, 4T, and 5T. Okay. For example, T6 plus or 1T6 plus matches any exalted item. At least one affix is tier 6 or higher. 2T7 matches double T7 exalted items. At least 2 affixes are tier 7. Okay. 3T6 plus and T7 matches triple exalted items where at least one affix is tier 7. For example, 3 tier 7s or 1 tier 7 to 2 tier 6s would both match. Okay. Added class requirements macros: Acolyte, Mage, Primalist, Rogue, and Sentinel. Added rarity macros, normal, magic, rare, exalted, unique, legendary, and set. Added Weaver Idol stash search macro that matches Weaver Idols. Rejects can now be composed into 2 search expressions like it's a macro. T7 and /boots / to find boots with at least 1 tier 7 affix. /relic /and /1 4 to 6 dexterity /and suffixes 1 to find relics with T7 dexterity and at least 1 open suffix. Added the ability to purchase a duplicate version of a stash tab through the configuration window. Okay. Nice. Player, minion, and enemy health bar settings now each have a corresponding color picker with color vision deficiency, aware preset color palettes to choose from. Town minimaps are automatically fully revealed. Cool. Then we have some general UI. Added a damage indicator to the edge of the screen when taking damage with the UI open. For example, when interacting with the Nemesis. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Updated the relics of the Observer crafting station in Orden's Watch. It will now reset the affix selection buttons after an item is placed or the craft completes to address edge cases where the visual selected affix was not the affix that was replaced. Added a new option in the game setting to turn off gold labels below a specified amount of gold. Increased the character limit in the stash search box and the vertical stash search box from 30 to 250? 5? 255? Oh my god, okay. Added a notification when you leave an item in the Forge crafting panel. Yeah, that's gonna be a good one. Updated the notifications when item ground tooltips are hidden. The enter button on the dungeon entrance panel now no longer allows you to click it where there is no key in the key slot. Okay. Added quick navigation buttons to faction rank panels when you are a member of at least 2 factions. Various UI elements now render correctly on 16:10 aspect ratio displays. 16:10? Yeah, okay. When the faction menu is opened, it now closes any other menu opened on the left, right, or the center of the screen. Added UI scaling for the Woven Echo crafting system and Weaver Tree. Updated Ancient Era chapter banner and map tab graphics. Updated Idle Enchanter stash button to set a search expression of WT Weaver Idle by default when clicked. Okay. Red notifications that re-added notifications that tell you why you cannot equip an item when you attempt to and fail. Okay. And also updated the organization of runes in the Forge based on their uses. Opening the bug report menu on keyboard / mouse layout will now autofocus on the description. Okay. Moving on to controller changes, my dudes. Player movement is now disabled if any panel is open while using a controller. Okay. Added controller navigation for the chat window. It's accessible from the menu wheel on controller on the second page. Okay. In the vendor UI, when you sell an item with a controller, your cursor will move to the next available item instead of defaulting to the now empty slot where the item you sold had been. Okay. You can now click or use LB/RB on the controller to swap between faction panels. Both the passive tree and the skill tree menus can now be navigated with either the directional pad or the left analog stick. Adjusted navigation of the character creation screen with the controller to be more intuitive. Nice. Okay, so how much more do we have left here? Okay, bro, we still have quite a lot we need to go through here, my dudes. So I'm gonna call it. I even went over. The timer here, so I want to keep these videos at like a 30-minute mark. This one's gonna be like 40. So yeah. Okay, my dudes, at least I think we can safely say that the next part of the patch notes reading is gonna be the last one for now. And yeah, I hope you're enjoying this, my patch readings, with my commentary, obviously, on the things that I feel like I can actually comment on. I mean, I'm not gonna comment on everything, because there's a bunch of things like I don't actually have an opinion on when it comes to like classes I haven't been playing a lot, or when it comes to issues that, you know, I've pretty much not been experiencing. Okay, that's gonna be it, my dudes, for this part 6 of the patch notes read through. And I'm Mounts of Fairy Tales, you are you. If you like this video, hit me up with a like. If you want to see more content like this, make sure that you hit me up with a sub. Hit the notification so that you will get a notification when a new video like this drops. Okay, my dudes, that's gonna be it. I hope to see you in part 7. I mean, it's even weird to actually say that. I hope to see you in part 7 of the patch notes. That's certainly gonna be, I'm 100% sure that's gonna be the last one. And yeah, until then, thank you ever so much for watching.